spring evaluation period has started, and Nebraska's hitting all the major states, including the biggest one, the state of Texas. Erin Hartigan of Fox Sports Next joins us now. She's going to break it all down for us. So, Erin, first off, thank you so much for joining us. Just tell us a little bit about some of the guys Nebraska's kind of reached out to the last couple days.
Well, they've hit their recruiting trails hard down here since Monday, which was the first day they could make these trips to schools. They've offered 4 in the last few days that I know of. Jovan Pruitt probably being the biggest, literally and figuratively. He is a 6'6", 295-pound, 4-star offensive tackle out of Dallas Bishop Dunn. And now he is the second offer at Dunn. I know they had offered his teammate cornerback Nick Watkins last year. So I know Nebraska was kind of waiting for his grade situation to improve before they offered. He's obviously up to a 3.0 now at Bishop Dunn Academy, which is a big deal. So that led to an offer for him, and then the same day following, they offered Jayaz Jones, who was a kid, honestly, who was flying under the radar down here for far too long, in my opinion. Iowa was actually one of the first offers for him. So it doesn't surprise me that Nebraska's throwing their card in the pile for him and trying. And I really think Jayaz is the type of kid, with Nebraska and Iowa being his 2 biggest offers, I really think he could be a kid that would be willing to leave the state of Texas. Obviously a safety that would fit great up at the Big Ten. Another guy who I could see leaving is Corey Avery, a running back out of Dallas Carter that they offered today. Avery's another guy who I saw last year, and Coach Aaron Fletcher, who was at Carter then and was the recruiting coordinator, just continued to pump him up, tried to get him as much exposure as possible. For some reason, things started slow for him. He now has West Virginia, Texas Tech, and then now Nebraska. But like you and I have touched on several times, Harv, with the luck Nebraska has had with luring running backs out of the state of Texas, obviously Mr. Rex Burkhead being one of the top, and then you got Adam Taylor in the class coming in, and Aaron Green at one point had a standout freshman year up there. I mean, so you think, just with that resonating in these kids' minds, that could play big for the Huskers.
Well, that was going to be my next question, Erin. 4 or 5 years removed from the Rex Burkhead days, is that a name that still, really resonates with recruits? I mean, is that a name that if he's mentioned, kids automatically know who he is?
Yeah, you know what? They do, surprisingly. I had heard about him as soon as when I first moved down here to Texas, people were mentioning, some of the guys that were almost surprises, surprise guys that had kind of developed maybe later in their career. I know Rex was obviously heavily recruited coming out of high school, but I don't think he held the respect that he does now. And I know he certainly gained more respect after his outing at the NFL Combine, that's for sure. He's a guy that everyone talks about, just his speed and his playmaking ability. And so the fact that these kids watched what he did at Nebraska and the success he had, and the fact that he is now going to hear his name called next week, I think that plays a large part. These kids sit here and think, I could be the next Rex. Linemen especially, I touched on Jovan. It was funny because in the interview, he had mentioned that Ndamukong Suh played at Nebraska, which I thought was cute because I had already known that, but, that was a big deal for him. The fact that Suh played on the defensive side, Jovan's on the offensive side, just goes to show how big of a household name Suh has been. And linked to Nebraska, obviously that's a lure for linemen. It lured Demarie Mixon out of West Mesquite last year. So, I wouldn't be so quick to rule Jovan out and assume he's going to stay in Texas. I really think he may weigh that option up in Nebraska.
Just before we let you go, Erin, talk a little bit about the state in general this year. And I'm sure Nebraska is going to be down there the next couple weeks with the spring evaluation period going into May. Just talk a little bit about not necessarily who you think Nebraska might offer next, but just about the state in general, and do you feel it's a deep year for the state of Texas?
Defensive backs, defensive backs, defensive backs. I cannot say enough about the load of DBs this 2014 class has. Nebraska's already offered several. Jamal Adams, who was recently named to a 5-star. Nick Watkins, like I mentioned, Jovan Pruitt's teammate. He's a corner. It's deep at the defensive back position. Marcus Green, I feel, is a sleeper. He's out of Cedar Hill. He has major offers, but I feel he is one that Nebraska could maybe offer next. Running backs is another one. We did touch on, the running backs Nebraska had offered. I know they are interested in a kid by the name of Trayvon Hughes, who was at Waxahachie and is now at Hebron with Jamal Adams and offensive lineman Zach Rogers in the 2015 class, and Cedric Dale, another cornerback that Nebraska is looking at. So that's a very deep program this year. But obviously, never a shortage of talent down here in the Lone Star, Josh. You know that.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to you coming up north here in a couple weeks to check out some guys like DJ Foster, Luke Gifford, Harrison Phillips. A much deeper year in the state of Nebraska this year.
Absolutely. Let's just pray for no snow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's just pray the weather cooperates.
That's Erin Hartigan of Fox Sports Next. Erin, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Harp.